It is Monday, the 30th of September, 2024. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. Here we are, another week of the show. We ended last week with Iron Sky by Paolo Nutini, and I mentioned in that episode that that song is sampled by 33 God by Bon Iver, and I then mentioned at the end of the episode that that will be the song I would be covering tomorrow, which is today. So today we are covering 33 God by Bon Iver. It's the fourth track on 22 A Million from 2016. Lots of numbers flying around here. I mean, there's a big numerology theme of the album, and I feel like it's one of the ones that stands out to a lot of people as like, I assume it was a single. It's one of the more accessible songs in the album, to say the least. Yeah, it was the second single. That makes sense. God, there was only 2 singles from this album? That's really weird. Yeah, it feels like one of the more accessible songs of the album, certainly, even though it's still weird. This album is interesting because I think the last time we talked about Bon Iver was like Perth at the start of this show. I don't know if we've talked about him since. The first album is all acoustic. The second album is acoustic and a bit of electronic as well, a bit more experimentation. And then this is the third album, and it's just really weird electronic production. They invented like a type of vocoder for this album. Lots of electronic stuff going on. It's a really interesting and experimental album, and I love it dearly. It's one of my favorite albums, and I'm just giving you the context for what you're about to hear. This song contains a lot of samples as well. It's not just the Paolo Nutini one, but that's the one that's kind of, it pops into my head a lot. Like, I can't listen to Iron Sky without thinking of 33 God and vice versa. Anyway, I think we should just go into it. I will say there's no official music video. There is an official lyric video, and that's what I'll be linking below. But I seem to recall that a lot of the lyric videos from this album had kind of like flashing imagery, so just, be mindful of that in case that's true of this one. I don't really remember, but we're about to find out, hey? So let's go listen to it now and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. As with any Bon Iver song, you might read the lyrics and think to yourself, what the fuck was that about? And I'm not going to be much help there, I don't think. A lot of people have speculated on religious imagery in this album and lots of things. I mean, the word God is in the title and it comes up in the lyrics. 33 is the age that it's generally agreed that Jesus died at, and the single was released 33 days before the album. It's also 3 minutes and 33 seconds long. There's lots of things you can read into that. Numerology is a big part of this album, but also 3 represents the Holy Trinity, so it seems to certainly be pointing that way. Especially because the lyric video opens with an epigraph that quotes Psalm 22, "Why are you so far from saving me?" Which there's also a voice reading that at the end of the song. That weird like slowed down, pitched down voice is actually a clip of someone saying that quote, So the first thing you hear in the song, really, apart from the little piano, is this sample from the song Morning by Jim Ed Brown. When we leave this room, it's gone. Then we get, is the company stalling? We had what we wanted, your eyes. And then you get the when we leave this room, it's gone sample again. With no word from the former, I'd be happy as hell if you stayed for tea. And then a different sample from Morning. I know so well that this is all there is. This is how we grow now, woman. A child ignored. These will just be places to me now. The foreman is down. We are rising the stairs. There's just so much going on here. Bon Iver's lyrics are fucking inscrutable to me some of the time. It helps that he makes up words a lot. But there's little things you can pick up here. We had what we wanted, your eyes feels like a media statement. It feels like, oh, we have your attention now. But like things like with no word from the former makes it feel like it's talking about like an ex. And then I'd be happy as hell if you stayed for tea. It's just a really cute expression. I love that. And then the sample of the when we leave this room, it's gone. I know so well that this is all there is. It feels like a reflection on life and there not being an afterlife. The most common interpretation of this song is that it's about someone struggling with their faith and losing their faith, And so you can take that to mean that as well. I know so well that this is all there is. There's nothing after this life. There's no afterlife, right? This is how we grow now, woman. A child ignored. These will just be places to me now. It like speaks this kind of detachment from what's going on. A lot of this album is about Justin Vernon kind of adjusting to his newfound fame. He'd become so much more popular than he'd ever been before, and it's kind of about his sort of disillusionment with that whole thing. So you can think about that as well. And then We're Rising the Stairs could of course be referring to going to heaven. That's what makes me think of. And then you get the chorus from Iron Sky by Paolo Nutini. The original lyric is, we find God and religions too. He says like religions too. The lyric video, the official lyrics list it as I find God and religion too, which is interesting because that's not what he's singing. singing, but it's how it's used here. And so you're continuing this God theme. You're saying, like, in these times of crisis, I find God in religion too, right? Now, staying at the Ace Hotel, if the cam would allow, then I would just be floating to you now. It would make me pass to let it pass on. I'm climbing the dash, that skin. So the Ace Hotel is a place in downtown Los Angeles, and there's a theater there. Famously, the building was used as a church with a big Jesus Saves sign, and then it was converted into the Ace Hotel in 2014, and one of those signs is still there, the big Jesus Saves sign. And so it ties in this religious theme again, of course. Also, Genius has a picture of Justin Vernon at the Ace Hotel in 2011, so that's interesting. Anyway, if the cam would allow, then I would just be floating to you now. So that makes me think of, if we're talking about disillusionment with fame, it makes it sound like I want to go to you, but I can't because there are people around me who are relying on me or who are approaching me on the street. Like, it's not, the seas are too choppy, so to speak, right? I can't begin to examine, I'm climbing the dash, that skin. And then in the post-chorus, we have another sample from Morning by Jim Ed Brown. Here in this room, this narrow room where life began when we were young last night. Again, thinking of, life being fleeting, right? Where life began when we were young last night. It makes it sound like, time has flown so fast. Well, we walked up on that bolt in the street after you tied me in the driveway of the apartment of his bead. Sent your sister home in a cab. Again, God only knows. Bead. Either a made-up word or the old English word for bed. Anyway, said I would have walked across any thousand lands. No, not really if you can't. I don't need you that night, not gonna need you any time. Was gonna take it as it goes. I could go forward in the light. Well, I better fold my clothes. So this makes me think, the whole I would have walked across 80,000 lands, I didn't need you that night and I couldn't need you any time. It makes you think of like a relationship, like I said, about kind of I would do anything for you. But also it makes me think of a relationship with God, a religion, I would have walked across 80,000 lands gives me the image of Exodus, right? But also I didn't need you that night, not going to need you any time. It makes me think of the religious internal conflict of we are all where we belong, right? If there's not a God to comfort you, there's not a God to punish you. How many times can I reference that song in this podcast? Well, we're almost halfway through, so it's already been a few. So that makes me think of like he's saying, I didn't actually need you. I never needed you before. I'm never going to need you in the future. I could go forward in the light. Makes you think again of approaching heaven. Well, I better fold my clothes, like getting ready for death. Makes me think specifically of Last Words of a Shooting Star by Mitski, which has a whole thing of like thinking she's going to die and being like, well, I left my room tidy. And then you get like a voice singing, I've been looking through your mind, and you get another voice singing, all my goodness to show. So this line is sampled from All Rendered Truth by Lonnie Holley. And before I looked up the lyrics of this album, I just listened to it on vibes alone. I didn't know what the fuck he was saying. I didn't know the samples, so I was kind of just trying to pick up what they said. And it's all my goodness to show, but I heard it as oh my goodness, and then oh my goodness, the shore. And it gave me this image of someone like adrift in a boat and they finally see land, oh my goodness, the shore. And I love that, but that's not what the song says, neither this song nor the sample. And it's just an interesting thing to me that I can't unhear that, and I think that would be an interesting idea for something in and of itself. The music itself, by the way, I love the piano. I love the other stuff going on. There's so many other samples, not just the vocals. There's also samples from It's Your Thing by Cold Grits and D Sharp G by Sharon Van Etten. And I love the drumming in this song as well. The drumming tends to clip on this album, but in a way I kind of enjoy. You should really watch, by the way. I feel like I mentioned it. No, I probably didn't because they didn't do Perth, but you should watch the NPR, not Tiny Desk concert, but there's like a full hour, 10 minutes ish, I think, concert of Bon Iver, and they do 33 God. It's one of the first songs they do in the set, and I love that whole thing. I've watched that whole video so many times, but the performance of 33 God is great, especially the drumming. And Justin Vernon is one of those people who gets lost in the music. He lets out a good wow yelp, Oh, I was going to say, actually, I got sidetracked. Oh my goodness, that whole thing. Bon Iver, before this album, did a song called Heavenly Father, which was created for the movie Wish I Was Here. It's a Zach Braff movie from 2014. It's fine. I've watched it. But the song Heavenly Father is featured in like a climactic scene, and there's a great performance of Bon Iver, along with like the Stevie Taylors, performing an a cappella version of Heavenly Father at the Sydney Opera House. I may talk about Heavenly Father someday because it's a great song, and that performance is fucking incredible. But at the end of it, Justin starts singing, oh my goodness, all my goodness to show. Which I always thought was really interesting, because that's not in Heavenly Father, and it later showed up in 33 God. And he does Heavenly Father in that concert I mentioned as well. I just think it's really interesting. He clearly had this kind of shape for using the sample in his head at the time, and it's interesting the cross-pollination that goes on there. Anyway, I don't think I have much else to say. It's hard to interpret Justin's music, but the vibes are immaculate. I love it so much. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Break it down. Now, the original lyric is, we find gods and religions too. And religions too. Then the post-chorus bit, we have another sample from Morning by Jim Ed Broom. Well, we walked up on that bolt in the street after you tied me in the driveway. Write more understandable lyrics, Vernon, so I can read them. Still, I'm glad that I left my room tidy. Goodbye.